The one piece of advice, it's going to be hard. I was told by a few people, you're in this alone. If you start a business, you're going down a path that no one else knows what you're doing. You're at the top of your top of the food chain. There's no one that can really tell you what to do, how to do it. Like that's lonely, but it has huge rewards. The chances of it succeeding, I don't know what the percentages are, but the chances after 5 years of a new business succeeding aren't very big.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. We're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Spencer Loveless. And Spencer started his journey with his parents starting a vacuum manufacturing business in the 80s. And then in the 90s, that evolved into a wet-dry vacuum business. And then before finally becoming a dustless vacuum system. And then during that time, Spencer went on a LDS mission, or a mission for his church, as well as got a degree in aviation. Then after that, went and worked for his dad for a period of time. Dad ended up dying in an airplane accident, and his mom was eventually looking to retire. Took over the business, got tired of working with China, and got into injection molding, and from there started to do mass production with 3D printing and or for others, as well as the vacuum business. And so I've been doing both of those and pursuing it. And with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Spencer.
Awesome. Thanks, Devin. I think we're about done. I think you covered all of it.
Absolutely. Everybody's life can be condensed into 30 or 45 seconds. And so that's all we have. But no, so I just gave a much more condensed version to a much or to a longer journey. So why don't we rewind and unpack a bit and tell us a little bit about how your journey got started with your parents getting into the vacuum business.
Awesome. So when I was a little baby crawling around the floor here in Carbon County, it's named Carbon County for a reason. We have a lot of coal. So we had a coal burning fireplace, and my dad would clean out the fireplace with a shovel and a bucket, and ash would just get all over the house. Coal ash, wood ash, whatever it was. So in that journey, he was a diesel mechanic, and he had when they would do overhauls at the power plants, they would take these bag houses and just scrap them and get rid of them. So he ended up getting some of this material for ash. And he created his own filter. So he made a vacuum for ashes out of wood stoves, 4 wood stoves that he used in his house. His mom wanted one, so he made her one. His neighbor wanted one, he made him. And it just kind of kept growing from there. He found a solution for his problem, and he eventually turned that into a business where he retired, or I should say he left from the power plant as a mechanic and started this ash vacuum business. From there, it evolved to wet-dry vacuums. And this is, like you said, in the 90s. He used the same technology on the vacuum and built a wet-dry vacuum. Fast forward a few more years, in the 2000s, we ended up making dust collection attachments for tools. I ended up graduating in the year 2000. And at that time, we were designing many different parts, many attachments for tools. Today, we have in dustless technologies, we have some SKUs in Home Depot, we have Sherwin-Williams, hardware stores across the country. So it's a fun business. A lot of it, the very first vacuum that my dad made for wet dries, the molds for that vacuum cost him $750,000 in the 90s. So today that would be, probably close to about $2 million if you're going to invest in that same mold for one vacuum. So when you go and you see a shop vac or a wet dry vac on a shelf at Home Depot, know that the very first vacuum was well in the millions of dollars to design in. And so
now let me ask one question just before we get too far into the vacuum journey, and we'll definitely circle back. But one of the things that I think that when we chatted a bit before, you went and served a mission for your church for a period of time, came back, went to college and studied a degree or got a degree in aviation. Is that right?
Yeah, so that was my dad's business. I served a mission in Paraguay, loved it. It was awesome. And came back, degree in aviation from UVU. I knew, and also in business. And so I started working with my dad after that in the early 2000s. I worked with him for about 2 years, side by side, same office. And then he ended up passing away in an airplane accident coming home from a trade show. So my mom and I ran the business for a few years. She
Now,
always wanted to retire.
one more question, just because we're getting into the journey and absolutely want to hear it, but just help me connect the dots, just because it doesn't quite connect in my mind. How did you go from aviation to the vacuum, or what motivated you to go into aviation and then go back to the vacuum business? Because it seems like two fairly different industries or two fairly different skill sets. So, or kind of how did that work out?
It was testing the waters in both of them. I didn't know if I wanted to do business. I didn't know if I wanted to be a pilot. I didn't know. Yeah, I did have a class when I was a senior in high school where I took a class at the airport here in town, and I ended up mopping a lot of hangars. But the very first day I went out there, the guy's like, "You want to go for a ride?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." So he took me up in his Lancer, and he's like, "How's your stomach? Do you want to do some loops and some rolls?" I'm like, "Let's do it." So we ended up doing aerobatic stuff in a plane, and I loved it. So just didn't know what I wanted to do there.
No, makes sense. And sometimes it takes a little while to figure out where's the right niche for you, and where you're going to take your journey in your career. So now going back to, so you got the aviation, enjoyed it, or joining the family business. Father unfortunately had an accident, passed away, and your mom's looking to retire. So amongst all of that, kind of where did you go from there?
So she ended up remarrying. She went on a mission. I took the reins of the business. And one of the issues that I always had was I wanted to develop and design products just like my dad did. I didn't know if I had the guts to really invest $1 million in the molds, but I said, if I could 3D print my parts, then I would invest maybe $1 million or come up with the money to buy a $1 million 3D printer that was then agile enough that I could change my design if I wanted to. Because with the molds, you can't, you're stuck to it. So we ended up going down a journey and saying, "Okay, we are going to design these products for ourselves, and we're going to 3D print them. We're going to find a way to do it." We had a lot of pushback from employees. We talked to everyone in the market. They said, "You're about 15 years ahead of your time. You can't print in mass production. It's just not possible. The quality's not there. The cost isn't there." So it took us about a year, but we ended up releasing the very first 3D printed part to land on a retail shelf, and we proved people wrong. And then other people wanted our solution as well. They wanted us to make them parts they wanted to skip China. They wanted to skip injection molding. And so we released another part, which is a phone case, and for a company in Utah called PhoneScope. That phone case landed in shelves in Cabela's and Bass Pro and in Shills. So in all these different stores across the country, we ended up proving to people that 3D printing is a viable option for mass production. So then we incorporated Merit 3D, which just provides people an option to mass produce their parts, skipping China, skipping injection molding. So, today the Dustless team, they're an awesome team. They manage a lot of the Dustless business. A lot of my time today is spent in the Merit 3D business, where we are helping to grow that business. We got an order. It's been about 9 months ago, but we got an order for 60,000 of these little binocular tethers. And so I took it back to my team and I said, "How quick can we print these?" And they're like, "We think we can do it in a couple of weeks." And I said, "No, how quick can we print these? Like, how are we going to prove to the world that this is an option?" And so they came back and they said, "Well, if the stars align, we could print it in a day." 60,000 pieces. So we spent a week and a half, and we geared up for this day. And at 8:00 in the morning, we hit print, and at 4:30 in the afternoon, we delivered 60,000 of these binocular tethers to the customer. And so it's something that hadn't been done before in the 3D printing world. So it's a journey. Like it's a very big learning journey.
No, that's awesome. And so, and you, or one maybe follow up to that is, so you know, you got into, or let me back up. So you're still in the vacuum business, and you kind of run both businesses side by side, or manage both of them. So, you know, how long have you been doing or how long has the 3D printing business been up and going, and how do you kind of manage doing both of those businesses, or balancing the time between them?
So the 3D printing business, Merit 3D, we started that about 2.5 years ago. We actually incorporated as a company. We started the 3D printing, you know, a good year and a half before that for Dustless, and manage both of them. They're both, you know, the teams on them are awesome. If you have the right people and the right leadership, it requires a lot less managing, and both of them have great leadership. So it's just a matter of, you know, skilling the one that we think is on the bell curve. It's on the very beginning side of the bell curve, but they complement each other. We're printing parts for Dustless. Every single week we come up and we say, hey, can we print this part? The answer is yes. That part is made. This is a part that came in last week. This part's made in China. This one is one we're starting to print now. So we're just reshoring these opportunities to bring manufacturing back to the States. So they complement each other hand in hand.
Oh, that's awesome. So, I mean, and it's always great a lot of times when you're in a business that, hey, the one business serves the other one. So you have a built-in starting point, launching point, allows you to do it, you know, to, you know, feed one business with the other. And then it also gives you a great ability to grow and to expand and to go into other verticals. So it sounds like it's been a great portion of the journey, and definitely been worthwhile for you. So now, as you kind of have both businesses up and running, you've had one, you know, that has a much longer track record in the vacuum business, and then you're now just getting into the mass production of the 3D printing for a couple of years. You know, where do you see both businesses headed? Or, you know, you're going to continue to pursue both of them are going to grow, vacuums never go away, or they're going to, or you're going to focus on 3D printing, or you're going to retire in a couple months, or anything in between? Where do you see they're going in the next 6 to 12 months for you guys?
So retire in a couple months, no. So our businesses are in Carbon County, Utah. Carbon County is very affected with coal. We have coal plants, we have coal mines, and within the next 10 years, those coal plants are shutting down. Like the EPA has put regulations on that make it so that they're going to have to either convert to something else. And so we reached out, and there's about 1,700 jobs that are going to be affected with these coal mines shutting down. So my goal and my vision is, how do we replace those 1,700 jobs of a coal job to a tech manufacturing job? And so we've hired ex-coal miners. We have people that have been in that industry, and we're training those people how to use CAD. We call it coal to CAD. We've worked at the university here to create an advanced manufacturing program that we could actually put people into that program, and then we could hire them on. And so our vision is very big. We want to not only change an economy, but we want to change the world with manufacturing. People are used to manufacturing the parts the same way they always have. Injection molding is it, stampings, castings. And so it's awesome when you see a company that'll just embrace that vision and say, I'm going to convert. Like, I'm going 100% digital. I can 3D print my parts now. And so is the cost and the quality and the scalability improve in all three of those elements, then this market is just going to explode, because reshoring is a huge, huge topic. And as we've seen with COVID, and as we've seen with the wars that are going on, like, supply chains are very weak. And if the more that we can bring back on shore, the stronger we can make our supply chains.
No, that's awesome. Sounds like a great motivation, as well as a great opportunity. So that there sounds like it'll be a fun future ahead of you guys yet to come. So, well, with that, now as we've kind of reached the present day of your journey, and even looking a bit into the future, great time to transition to the two questions I always ask at the end of each episode. So we'll jump to those now. So the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What did you learn from it?
The worst business decision I've ever made has been to let someone in the business as a part owner without having a good exit plan. We did that after my dad passed away, and it ended up almost sinking the business because you have business valuations, you have different viewpoints. It was something that we didn't have to do, but it was something that we felt good about it and we did it, but it ended up costing a ton of money, and it almost sunk the business. So what I learned from it is I'm very hesitant with giving ownership away, but I think there's that balance between how do you do it in the right way so that you still protect the company and you don't put that in a position that could break the company, but yet how do you make it right for your employees? Sometimes they want in, sometimes they don't. In the end, one thing I learned from my dad was you just take care of your employees. I tell him up front, I'm like, I don't know what this looks like in the end. Right now, all the risk is on my shoulders, but if it ends up, doing well, whatever happens, like, we'll be taken care of. You'll be taken care of. I don't know what that looks like, but that's what I learned from that.
No, and I think that's a great takeaway. And I think, sometimes you get pressured and not even by others, but you just see, everybody has business partners, everybody is bringing them on, and it makes it accelerate it. And sometimes that's true. And sometimes you can bring on the right partner and they have the right area expertise or connections, or they can otherwise help to expand and grow it. But it does change the dynamic of the business, and it brings in a different perspective, different motivations, different ways they can do it. You have to now run things by people that you may not have before. And so I think that, sometimes you may be quick to see all the positives, but you have to fully think that through. And some people are made to have partners. I'm not. So I definitely get the both perspectives. So I think that it's an easy mistake to make, but a great one to learn from. Second question now that I always ask is, now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
The one piece of advice, it's going to be hard. Like I was told by a few people, you're in this alone. If you start a business, you're going down a path that no one else knows what you're doing. You're at the top of the food chain. There's no one that can really tell you what to do, how to do it. Like it's lonely, but it has huge rewards. The chances of it succeeding, I don't know what the percentages are, but the chances after 5 years of a new business succeeding aren't very big. And so know that there's that risk involved, and you're going to use sweat equity, you're going to use friends and family, your own money, whatever that is. But I'm the flexibility that I have, and is awesome. I give that to employees as well. Whenever they need time off, take it. So I don't think that's as big of a benefit now, but just keep move forward. And if it's supposed to work out, it does. It's going to be a hard journey though.
Yep. No, I think that's true. And I think that sometimes we get the false perspective, or that when you watch the movie, you read the book, you listen to the podcast, or whatever it might be, that everybody's an overnight success. You just have to have that one great idea and everything else will fall into place. Well, even if you have that one great idea and eventually it does fall into place, there's still a lot of work, time, money, and effort, blood, sweat, and tears, uncertainty. And to your point, you're the person at the top, and it's not like you can go to your boss and ask, what are you doing, or what should you do, or what's the next step, because it all falls on you. And there's a lot of good things about it, a lot of things that make it enjoyable and worthwhile, but you have to be willing to understand that there's the both sides of it, and strap in for a good journey. So I think that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah.
Well, now as we wrap up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
I think the easiest way is through LinkedIn. We love being transparent in what we're doing. We're doing a lot of videos. So if you look up Spencer Loveless on LinkedIn or Merit 3D, we're just showing people how we're transforming the manufacturing process. I'm very active there. I answer all my messages there, and then we can reach out further. But if you want to follow us, you want to see what we're doing in rural Utah, want to see how manufacturing is changing and how we're reshoring things, or if you have a part that you say, hey, I want to produce these, I want to produce 1,000 of them. you can reach out there. I would like to add, we just got, I think, the largest 3D printing order ever in history. And we just got an order for 1 million of these parts.
That's
so
awesome.
Up until, people are always asking, they're like, what's that sweet spot? When should I 3D print? When should I use traditional manufacturing? And this really breaks that mold, no pun intended, of people using molds, because now customers are actually 3D printing millions of parts.
Awesome. Well, I definitely, that's exciting to get some orders, get a lot of traction, and see success with it. So I definitely encourage people to reach out, make a connection, make a new best friend, and definitely support a great business. And so with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of your listeners that are out there, you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to share these journeys and help more businesses along their journey to success. And on that note, if along your journey you need help with patents, trademarks, or anything else with your startup, your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. We're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Spencer, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Awesome. Thank you, Devin.